the people of Khayelitsha just to get insights into their reaction to this January 8th statement. I'm now joined by Professor Zwelinzima Ndevu, political analyst and a governance expert. Prof, always great to speak to you. What are the key highlights for you from ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa's address today, bearing in mind that this is the first address that's been made where the ANC no longer has that majority in Parliament?
Good afternoon to you and good afternoon to your listeners. One should remember that the January 8th statement is a celebratory event. It is an event where the president has to reflect on what happened in the previous year or before the events before this celebration. And one of the things that have came out in these ANC statements that were very clear to me is the ANC acknowledging that they are not in the position that they would normally be in when they address issues or when this statement is presented. And therefore the need and the importance to reconnect with the people at the grassroots level would know that the ANC is known to be a people's party, and they've recognized the fact that they have not connected with people. And it's symbolic that it is in Khayelitsha, in a township where they've spent a few days interacting with communities. In his speech, he has emphasized the issue of renewal of the ANC. That project of renewal must take speed. He talks about it being visible, it having a credibility. So what they are saying and what they do should reflect what they want to see as renewal. The second thing that he really talked about was the unity of the alliance. I think he emphasized the importance of working together as the alliance because of the events that unfolded late in the year with the South African Communist Party. He also emphasized the issues around job creations, ensuring that we build the economy, ensuring that the economy builds from these improvements that we've seen in the past few years. He also emphasized the issue around the energy, the role that ESCOM and electricity plays in the economy. He also talked about the importance of having public officials, especially ANC public representatives, that are accountable, that conduct themselves in the manner that is ethical, in keeping up with issues of good governance, in ensuring that in everything that they do, they understand that they are just a mere representative of the people and ensuring that they do the will of the people.
Professor Ndevu, you know, when President Cyril Ramaphosa speaks to issues around service delivery, employment, I suppose there's no better place to have that conversation than Khayelitsha, because that is a neighborhood that is devoid of all these items that he speaks to. Did he come up with the concrete resolutions? Are the people of Khayelitsha walking away from this January 8th celebration, celebrating themselves because the president of the ANC and of the country has answered their questions?
I think the point that you're making is a very important point. Khayelitsha is rife in terms of crime, Khayelitsha is rife in terms of poverty, and so forth and so forth. So all the social ills that you can talk about, you would find them in Khayelitsha. Therefore, and the point that I was raising earlier on, that it is symbolic that the ANC, when it wants to reconnect with the masses of our people, it would go to Khayelitsha. It is important, therefore, that we don't see only promises being made, but we see programs. Unfortunately, we've seen a few programs that were delivered by different ministers in the past few days. Some in terms of stimulation of job creations, which were very important by the Ministry of Labour. But one has not seen as to whether these would be sustainable programs. Even in the president's speech, although he talked about stimulating the economy, although he talked about ensuring that there are opportunities that are created for employment for younger people and so forth, but there were no details to that. One would have expected that the people of Khayelitsha would leave having had details of those. As we know, our president, and it is not his statement, it is a statement of the NEC, but he has over the years been making promises, not giving detail to those promises. And it might have been important for him to give detail to some of these, even if it's timelines, saying by this time, this is what would happen. We would halt poverty or unemployment in Khayelitsha by X, and these are the things that would provide the services to deal with those issues. I mean, they've spoken to a number of people, a number of households, that the impoverished households. They've given gifts to some of them, And those are not sustainable alleviation programs. They are just a stopgap program. After a month or two, those consumer pool will be exhausted, and therefore those people will be back where they are. We would want to see tangible programs, and we have not seen that.
Well, something that we witnessed this afternoon was when the SACP Deputy National Chairperson, Khayelitsha, spoke at this address, and he was jeered by ANC supporters when he talked about the decision by the SACP to contest the next elections. Now, Cyril Ramaphosa has also then talked about the importance of the alliance. Are these two parties, if you will, in tandem?
I think there has been challenges between the SACP and the ANC, and it's mainly around how the alliance is reconfigured and who leads the alliance as a leader of society. And we've seen over time there has been engagement, or there has not been any engagement around that. And the decision that was taken by the SACP at the end of last year has, of course, made the ANC very uncomfortable. You have an ANC that coming from an election that got very weak results. And therefore, you have one of his critical partners saying that we will go on our own in the next elections. One would expect the response that the membership of the ANC has gave to the deputy chair of the SACP, because they're not very happy with this decision. I mean, the ANC is at its weakest point. You are weakening it even further. What I expect to happen is before these next elections, local government elections in 2026, there would be further engagement, there would be reconciliation. These two parties would find each other, and ultimately the SACP would not contest elections on their own. They have pronounced before that they would do this, but they've never, in fact, contested the elections on their own directly. So I hope that it would be, because if that does not happen, then you would have this ANC not surviving that.
Well, Professor Ndevu, I think it's interesting that you talk about these two parties finding themselves, because one of the critical areas that Solima Paila talked about a few weeks ago was the GNU, and that the GNU is a big factor in this discontentment by the SACP. So how do you envision the ANC dealing with the alliance partners in light of the GNU?
I think one of the questions that I always ask myself when I hear Solima Paila talks about the GNU, his party's unhappiness with the GNU. They've got over 5 ministers who are senior members of the party who are serving in the GNU. If they were really serious about the ANC not going into the GNU with the parties that is with, I think one of the steps that one would have expected would be withdraw those members from the GNU. You still see them having those members within the GNU. And that's where I think that there is hope that these two parties would find each other, because the issue might be how this GNU is configured. And if that is dealt with, which does not change the partners necessarily, but it might change the strategic positions that are given to certain political parties within the GNU. And that might bring some form of comfort to the South African Communist Party. So I do have hope. All signs are that not all is lost, because you have these senior members. One of them is the chairperson, national chairperson of the ANC, who's also a senior member of the party. You have others that are still serving there. So I think there is hope in that sense.
Now, this is one of those times where the ANC can ill afford not to keep its promises. So we've had many January 8 statements. And I suppose in the recent past, one of those promises that have been made and have been kept, surprising for many people, is the issue around power. I mean, there's provision uninterrupted power supply for longer than we can remember. But there are other issues, issues such as crime and corruption, unemployment for young people in particular. How do you see the ANC marrying the need to address these challenges with the upcoming elections in 2026, for instance? Because there are more young people, more unemployed people that will be voting in that election that haven't voted previously. So it's obviously got to be a sore point for them.
I think the ANC is in a very difficult position. Unlike the previous January statements, as you've correctly indicated, where they had the luxury of the majority of members within a government where they would run the government solely. In this instance, they're coming from a very difficult elections where they've lost support. So if it is crucial for them to therefore keep their promises, if they don't, then there might be even greater consequences for the party in the next coming elections. So I think that while they have set out these expectations, they will try and strive to ensure that they keep some of them, or not, if not all of them, because they know that the consequences would be dire. The issue of unemployment, the majority of the people that are unemployed are younger people that would be going to the poll, as you rightfully indicated. So if you don't create opportunities for these people to either start businesses or get employment, sustainable jobs, then they are going to punish you at the polling station. So I think the ANC has no other choice but to stick to the promises that they've made and to also hold public representatives accountable timeously in ensuring that these targets are met.
Herein lies a question. The ANC has made promises, many promises, and many of these promises were made prior to the GNU. How does the ANC reconcile its promises and also the working relationship with the GNU, keep its own identity, but also take into context that it now has partners in this government of national unity?
I heard the president saying that the ANC cabinet members are still in majority, so in essence, the ANC is still in the driving seat. But we know that while the ANC is in the driving seat, there are challenges. They can't take decisions without consulting their partners. We've seen with the Bella Act, for example, where the president approved part of the bill and later on confirmed the other parts of the bill because of the challenges that they're experiencing. So it is not going to be an easy road because some of the promises that they have made are things that are not shared by their partners, or if they're not shared, the process of implementing them is not shared. So it is going to be a difficult task for them to navigate. But I think the president, as the head of the state, and the deputy president, who's from the ANC, as the head of government, would have to take a lead in ensuring that all these promises are met and use their majority in the GNU to push these issues on. It is not going to be it's not going to be an easy thing. It is definitely going to be a difficult thing, but they have that responsibility to ensure that they meet these targets.
Professor Ndevu, as we wrap up the conversation, do you give this January 8th statement a thumbs up, or is it business as usual for you?
I think one of the things that sets it apart from the other January 8th statement is that this statement, the ANC tried to reconnect with the community, tried to speak the language that the communities would understand, tried to connect with the challenges that they have had from the communities in the past few days that they spent with communities. What is clear is that plans only without implementation would not be something that would help the ANC regain the support that it wants from the communities. And the emphasis from the presidents of good governance, accountability, taking responsibility, that's what sets it apart from the others. So I'm hopeful that this might be the turning point.
Professor Zwelinzima Ndevu, political analyst and governance expert, giving us his analysis on this January 8th statement. And he is convinced that this particular statement seems to set the ANC apart from previous statements. I suppose in the next few days, next few months, time will tell. Watch the news feed of the PM edition, a reminder of our leading stories this hour.